Hey everybody, welcome back to another Citrus Corner. I got my bros with me, Mr. Slimer down below, and the OG himself, Mr. Orange Grove 55. We're going to start diving into a little bit of what's going to be going on at Walt Disney World now that we started 2024. And we're also going to take a look at MickeyViews' latest video that breaks down a lot of what's going on as well and give our opinions on that as well. But definitely stick around on Citrus Corner as part of OG 55.
You know, George, before I hit the graphic, we look like Death Row Records promotion with all
We
the
do.
black.
We do. So let's do our pose and then hit it. Welcome back, everybody, to another Citrus Corner. We are revitalizing Bohemian Rhapsody with our with our outfits. Just kidding. But before we get started, let me introduce to you my fantastic panel today as part of Citrus Corner. I'm going to start down below, Mr. Slimer. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, George. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. It's been a while since we've done a Citrus Corner, but we've been covering a lot of live shows because there's like not a whole lot that's been coming out with the news. But Disney also dropped a lot of interesting news with the start of the new year, and we have some things in the pipeline. So I can't wait to discuss it with you guys.
Yeah, I can't wait either. We're going to do a deep dive into all the things coming out this year that we know so far. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where could they all find you on social media?
So if you guys want to follow me, you guys can follow me on Slime Square 84 on Twitter for all the latest Ghostbusters news and info, and for all the older stuff too, because that is a 40-year-old property. So
absolutely. And OG, we got Slimer on. We got to give him a proper introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Slimer, do you remember in Ghostbusters 2 the Ghostbusters rap? By the way, do you remember that?
Oh, about Bobby Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah, you kidding me? Me and my wife sing it all the time.
Nice.
He's already hit
All
it.
these dollars got commas that come with commas behind them, and all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming. And all my slammers be slamming.
That's awesome, dude. You guys sing it all the time? You guys are cooking dinner and just singing it, rapping?
Bobby Brown, you never know when Bobby Brown's going to start singing in my house, man.
That's fantastic.
That's
Brown
great.
had it going on, dude.
I do love that soundtrack. That's a really good soundtrack. I love
It
that
really
song.
is.
I have it on my Amazon Music, but okay, we're going off the deep end here. But before we get started, also joining us this evening, he doesn't need an introduction, but hell, we're going to give him one anyway. The OG of OG 55, Mr. Orange Grove 55. How you doing today, sir?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. It is a pleasure, as always, joining you fellas talking Walt Disney World. We have a lot of news today. We were joking on the phone the other day, George, that we got no news during the holidays. And then right after, we're going to get like the floodgates are going to open. And sure enough,
Sure
enough, today we woke up to Scott Gustin blowing us all up on Twitter.
That's his specialty. So what we're going to kind of do is we're going to dive into Braden's latest video, and we're going to hear what he has to say. We're going to give our thoughts and opinions on the matter. And then while we're doing that, we're also going to be discussing actually of everything that's going to be coming out of Walt Disney World in the pipeline of 2024. So OG, if you want to get the video rolling, let's get started.
Let's get started. And just so you know, gentlemen, if there's a point where you want me to pause the video to say anything, just let me know along the way and I'll pause it and we can break it down.
All right.
Cool beans.
Hey everyone, Braden here coming to you with our What's Coming to Walt Disney World in 2024 video. This is a video that we do every year, taking a look at what we have to look forward to at Walt Disney World over the next year. While the supply of new additions to look forward to is definitely on the decline at Walt Disney World due to a near halt in capital investment at the parks over the past few years, where that's really going to rear its ugly head.
Okay, does anyone want to talk about this for a second?
Yeah, let's
Okay,
start it
so
off here.
I have to respectfully disagree with Braden on this. When he says a near halt the past few years, and I'm a Disneylander, so I'm not even familiar with everything that Florida gets. I'm not as privy to it like I am Disneyland. But in 2017, you got Pandora, right? You got Pandora. 2019, you got Galaxy's Edge, 15 acres added to Hollywood Studios. In 2021, you got Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. In 2022, you got Cosmic Rewind. 2023, you got Tron. Now, those are just the big things. That's not even including the little things that are sprinkled in throughout those years. But that's only been, 6 years?
Yeah, and then this year at the very end, we're going to get Tiana's Bayou Adventure. So I get it. There's always like that repercussion of saying, okay, well, it has to be like 5 or 6 big things. But if you actually go back into Disney Parks history, there was points of time where like there was absolutely nothing going on. There was like 3 to 4 to 5 years of just basically whatever is in the parks was there.
Right. Slimer, any thoughts on this?
Well, not to mention that last year we also got Moana Journey of Water. We also had the World Celebration reopen not too long ago. So, yeah, I respectfully disagree. There's been a lot of investments actually over the last couple of years in Walt Disney World alone. And we're not even going to bring up the international parks. We won't even bring up Disneyland because that wouldn't be fair. We're going to do an apples to apples comparison. But, yeah, there have been much larger dry spells in Walt Disney World's history. I remember as a kid not seeing any new rides for George, like you said, 9-10 years.
Yeah.
And then back in 2001, we got the Magic Carpets of Aladdin, and that's the year we wish we didn't get anything.
Head is in 2025 and beyond. It actually turns out that this year we do have some pretty big changes to cover, but beyond 2024, it is a ghost town right now. So a big part of this year is going to be us waiting to hear from Disney what the plan is come Epic Universe, which opens down the street summer 2025. What's Disney got? What do they have that's going to rival that or do anything to draw crowds Disney's direction? The answer seems to be not much. We know they're considering putting Indiana Jones in the animal.
Really quick, I just have to make this notion, and I'm not just saying to Braden, I'm just saying to in general, like over scope of just the theme parks in general. When people end up bringing up Universal when you're talking about Disney or vice versa, I don't really feel like it is a fair point to say, okay, well, because Universal is doing this, how is Disney going to retaliate back? I really think that is like the wrong outlook to have. If Disney is going to do something, they should do it to benefit them, benefit the company, not by having this rivalry with these other entertainment studios and stuff.
You never want to get to a position where you're being super reactionary. And the fans, I feel like the fans want Disney to be super reactionary. Oh, well, Universal's building another park. We better build something big too. And it's like when you go down that road, you're chasing your tail. And it's bad strategy. You're right, George. Disney needs to do what's best for Disney. Universal is in a different spot right now in their theme park journey than Disney is. Disney already has a massive resort. We got 4 theme parks, 2 water parks. We went through our big Disney expansion in Florida during the Eisner years. Now, Universal is kind of going through their big expansion now. That's fine, but that doesn't mean Disney needs to match their level of growth. They're at different. The market shares are different, and they're vying for different things right now. What are your thoughts on that, Slimer?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, man. With regard to where they are in their stages of expansion, Universal Studios is where Disney World was in 2003 when they were adding their 4th park to the Walt Disney World Resort. They're just now adding their 3rd park, but according to them, it'd be their 4th park because they count Volcano Bay to actually be a park, even though it's a water park. But yeah, they're 2 completely different stages, and I think that's a really bad perspective to have. I don't think that Disney World has to respond to anything. And he uses the term rival. If anything, it's Universal that's trying to rival Disney World because Disney World is one that has 4 parks, 2 water parks, and land mass the size, twice the size of Manhattan. So if anything, it's Universal that's playing catch up to Walt Disney World. So
It's a great point. And a lot of people don't recognize that very obvious fact too, right? When you hear in fandom circles, it's, oh, well, what's Disney going to do to respond? Well, it seems like Universal's the one, you're right, Slimer. Universal's the one that's responding and trying to catch up,
Yeah. And they're about 20 years behind right now. I mean, they could catch up very quickly, but the fact of the matter is Disney World doesn't have to do anything. And so this like anxious pressure that the fans are putting on Disney World to respond, like you said, it's coming from a weird place, and I think it's really unnecessary. And Disney doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%.
Kingdom, they're considering this, they're considering that. I haven't told you guys this before, but lately it's been almost weekly where I'm hearing from our sources all these lofty new ideas that Imagineering has been working on, coming up with. It seems like there's some sort of interest from the executives and Imagineers coming up with ideas and proposing things. But then what's been happening also on a weekly basis is then we hear, oh, Walt Disney World's president, Jeff Valou, he said no. Walt Disney World's president, he said, no, we don't want to do this. We don't want to do this. We never hear yes. It's always no, no, no. And the cycle
can you hit that, OG? Sorry.
Sure.
Okay. I had this conversation with Slimer on the phone earlier today, and I actually brought this up to him. What I thought was quite interesting, because when the first time that I watched Braden's video, that he does bring up Bob Iger, he does bring up Josh D'Amaro, but then he brings up the president of Walt Disney World, which I thought was quite interesting, Jeff Valou. And what I'm trying to understand is, and I could be wrong, if one of you can correct me, or anyone, watching this, comment down below if I'm wrong. I didn't know that the president of Walt Disney World, or any of the Disney parks for that matter, really had a say-so of greenlighting projects. I thought that was always for whoever was the chairman of the parks and the CEO of the company, and then they relayed it down to the president of saying, this is what's going to go on, yada, 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 so on and so forth. I never really thought of the notion of the president of the resort to tell the park's chairman, no, we're not going to do this.
They do have power in this arena. Like, they can vie for stuff to go to their resort. You know what I'm saying? So if what's his name? Volley, if he wanted something at Disney World, he was, maybe a new attraction or whatever, he could kind of make the case. I mean, ultimately, I would assume the ultimate approval comes from Daddy Josh. But Volley does have power here where he can sort of address it to Josh, I assume, and kind of get that ball rolling and kind of pitch things to him. So there is power there. I don't know, though, in terms of like I don't know if Volley can just green light, like you were saying, George, like green light and it happens. I'm pretty sure he still has to get Daddy Josh's approval, at least for the big things, right? At least for like the big attractions,
right,
and things like that. Like, maybe the small things like a parade or a thing here or there, maybe he doesn't need, and he probably doesn't need that Daddy Josh approval. But if you're building a new land, a new attraction, things like that, you probably do. But what are your thoughts on that, Slimer? Do you know any about what? Oh, go ahead, George.
No, really quick, Slimer, before you make your point. Does anybody know when Volley started as president?
I'm not familiar with that. No, Simon, are you aware? I think it's been a few years. I know that much. I don't know the exact date though, George.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, but one thing that we have to keep in mind is that they recently spent $30 billion over the course of the last 11 years. Over the park, within the parks, how much of that went to Walt Disney World? If you look at the slideshow that they had at the D23 last year when they announced a $60 billion investment for the next 10 years, I would say the majority of that investment went domestically, and you'd be looking at a massive amount of investment. Maybe 10 to 15 billion of that was at the domestic parks. So it's not like they haven't been investing. They have budgets that they have to stay within. So anything that was unapproved or disapproved or shot down probably fell out of the scope of the budgets for overhead expenditures, for any sort of capital expenditures into new things. Probably weren't in the plans. A lot of these budgets are also done by committee too. They get shot up to Jeff, they get shot up to Josh. Then they go to the CEOs, and then the accountants look at it and say, hey, does this fit into the year? Is this going to make our numbers look good for the fiscal year? So there's two sides to this story. I feel like he's kind of demonizing him here. Like, oh man, like Jeff didn't approve these budgets. Like, what an asshole. But what's the other side of the story, right? Because there is one. We just don't know the details of it. And I just want to caution anybody at just blaming Jeff Valou for there not being an additional $6 billion of attractions right now. Right. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, no, you're right. You're right, Summer. And we also have to understand too, and I think some people might not want to acknowledge this, but I do think it's kind of the elephant in the room. You have a lot of uncertainty right now too with Florida, with the governor and this whole district. So it makes sense from Disney's perspective because, Braden was mentioning, well, from after 2024, we don't really have any official announcements. I mean, Disney they probably are waiting until they know how this district is going to shake out before they move forward. I mean, that would kind of make sense. That doesn't mean that things are going to be on hold forever. I mean, these court cases are coming up, they're probably going to get this kind of ironed out fairly soon. So I think once they know what they're working with, I think we'll start to get more announcements, So I think that's part of the equation. It's not completely just like you were saying, Slimer. It's not completely just kind of like, oh, well, it's just Jeff Valou. You know what I'm saying? There's other factors and external factors at play here, 100%. Right.
Continuing, where Imagineers are trying to give us something, and then they end up giving us nothing because there is no money to do so, and there's all sorts of disagreement over the actual plans. And as a result, what you're seeing more and more Imagineers head out the door as they say, why bother? Why be here and nothing's actually happening?
Yeah, ironically, though, we've actually, at least recently, we've seen more people leave Universal Creative. Check it out. It was a scoop from The Wrap. They had a massive exodus from Universal Creative. I think it was just a year ago, where a big chunk of their top executives opted to take the pay package and leave Universal Creative. I have a source that I've mentioned many times here on the channel who can confirm that. And this source was telling me that there's a lot of drama over there at Universal Creative, and they jumped on these pay packages at the first chance they got. And it's kind of interesting because you would think usually these executives, when there's a big project coming up, they usually want to wait until that big project to kind of get that that notch in their belt, so to speak, right? They didn't do that. Epic Universe opens, in a year, and they're opting to leave the company early and take the package. I mean, that doesn't look good. That looks really, really bad. So it's funny he's mentioning there's this thing going on at Imagineering. I don't know. I mean, it might be true, but I've actually seen more news and headlines the past year or so about people leaving Universal Creative than I have about Imagineering.
George, you have anything on that, brother?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have heard too from the source that a lot of the Universal Creatives have been bowing out with their package deal that the company was offering and what have you. I haven't really heard anything. Now I could be wrong, but I mean, I've never really heard anything recent of any Imagineers leaving. If anything, I heard obviously several people coming back into Imagineering to kind of help with the creative process, such as Bruce Vaughn. Every time I have to stop myself because I always want to say Vince Vaughn, which obviously it's not, but Bruce Vaughn. But I mean, there may be Imagineers that leave, but do you know what? That's a typical in any kind of corporation or any kind of job. You have people that come and go, and you just can't always look at that as a red flag.
Yeah, and that's really the case with Universal Creatives and Disney and Imagineers. These guys are bouncing from park to park all the time, depending on what work is available. If there's no work available at Disney, they go to Six Flags. If there's no work at Six Flags, they go to Universal. And they've been doing this for decades. And unless you're a senior Imagineer or senior Universal Creative, you're always looking for work elsewhere. Yeah. The guys that have been there for the longest and have senior in front of their titles, they're the ones that really stick around with the companies long term.
100%. This is what I was talking about. Universal Creative Brain Trust gutted in mass exodus of team behind biggest attractions. This wasn't too long ago. This was if I can have the date on here. This is just a year ago, just a little over a year ago, December 14th of 2022. High-ranking Universal executives behind popular Harry Potter, Minions, and Nintendo attractions are responsible for developing ride shows, lands, and theme parks around the globe. Mass exodus. So I don't know. I mean, look, I'm not saying Imagineering hasn't lost people, but lately we actually brought some old school folks back, like Bruce Vaughan. I mean, what I'm seeing over here at Universal seems to be, a little more significant. So I don't know. Let's continue with Mr. MickeyViews.
Disney, this time for kicking the can down the road, it's over. It's time to put your money where your mouth is, because you've got some competitors who have some pretty exciting stuff on the way. And Disney, we're looking over at this and it's like, I don't know, man. Seems like there's not a whole lot going on, especially once we're into 2025. In 2024, though, the first big change will go into effect on January 9th, when date-based ticket holders will no longer be required to make park reservations in advance. Meaning when you go on Disney's site and you buy a ticket, Disney has you pick a specific day, use that ticket, a specific time frame. You won't have to commit on each day which park you're going to in advance. You don't have to say, I'm going to go to the Magic Kingdom, and then you're locked into doing that. You can go wherever you want, which is quite nice. Now, unfortunately, this rule being lifted does not apply to annual pass holders, who will still have to make park reservations. But Disney is now rolling out good-to-go days where pass holders are not going to be required to make reservations in advance. But how many days out of each month are actually going to be those good-to-go days, we don't know just yet. And let me say, while these changes are welcome and that they are rolling back park reservations, which are the worst, they're making it more complicated. They're not just getting rid of the park reservations, they're still sort of keeping them, but you have to check the calendar, and certain times you don't have to get a reservation, and for certain ticket types you do. It's clear that Disney really loves the data that they've been able to mine off of our park reservations.
What are your thoughts on this, Slimer, about the reservation system over there in Florida?
The existing reservations, or what they're going to be doing starting this month?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, what they're going to be doing starting this month.
Well, I mean, it's great for day tickets. I think that's a really good thing. With regard to the annual pass holders and the cast members, starting on the he didn't mention this, but starting on the 11th, that's when you'll be able to view the good to go calendar. As an annual pass holder, you're always checking the calendar anyways, unless you have the top tier annual pass. So for 3/4 of the annual pass holders, that really doesn't change any. I'm pretty sure they'll find a way to incorporate the good to go dates into the blockout calendar. If there's a way they could just merge it, so that way you're not having to look at two different calendars, that'd probably be the best approach. I don't know. It's funny. I was talking about this with George earlier, and we were talking about the elimination of the reservation system, how they've been dragging their feet to do this for the last 3 years, because they implemented this a long time ago. And I do feel like they have been dragging their feet on this. I feel like this is something that should have went away as soon as the pandemic was over. And then they gave this argument that, they're using it for the data points. Well, first and foremost, I don't know if I buy that, because Disney World has been around since 1971, and they've had 50 years of data points. I don't know what additional data points that they got with the reservation system that they didn't have the prior 40-something years prior to that.
I would agree with you, Slimer. I think actually new data, if we're going to talk new data or analytics, would probably come more from like the mobile order stuff and things like that than the reservation system.
Yeah, and then with regard to how that affects overhead expenditure, like if you're trying to pinch every nickel and penny with regard to overhead operational costs, again, it's been there for 45 plus years, probably before the implementation of this reservation system. I don't know what added benefit that would have to overhead operational costs. I mean, let's say you knew how many people are going to be reserved next month. Is that a logistical thing? Is the logistics departments of operational overhead, or the logistics department that's feeding operations, are they the ones that are pressuring, the Walt Disney World company or Walt Disney World Resort to maintain reservations? What challenges are they running into? It makes me wonder. And are they new challenges that they didn't have pre-pandemic? Not only that, but if you're eliminating reservations for day tickets, that's the majority of the people in the park. So you're eliminating the majority of your data points that way by only keeping reservations for annual pass holders and cast members. So that contradicts the whole like, well, we need this for
Right.
we need this for information to run the parks more efficiently.
No, and
Not
I
really,
right.
because
And
you got
sorry,
Go
and
ahead,
I no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do agree with you. I really do. It's when they say it's for data, for to see how many people go through the turnstiles each time and kind of using it as a tracking type of system. It's like, yeah, as soon as everything got lifted, the PND was over, the shutdown was over, everything reopened. Yeah, everything should have just went back. Maybe have it in the very beginning and then kind of wean it off a little bit. That I can understand, but we're 4 years into, like that. I think that's a little bit way over abundance. But now, do you think the reason why they're still keeping for annual pass holders is, do you think now for that kind of data to really actually see how many annual pass holders go in day for day at these parks as opposite regular basic ticket holders?
what information would that serve them though? I mean, they know.
Do you think eventually that they would just kind of get rid of the annual passes?
No, not. Oh, you mean the annual pass reservations?
No, just the passes in general.
Oh no, never. They would never get rid of annual passes.
Because I know, like in the very beginning, because in a way, and this could just be me, it almost like they said, oh, thank you for being an annual pass holder, so and so. But in a way, it was the annual pass holders that were kind of getting a little bit of the short end of the stick, which is now going to show now because we're still stuck with the reservation system.
Well, I don't know about Florida. I mean, you guys have much more tourism over there, but out here in California, I can totally see why the reservation system is sticking with the Magic Keys because we got way too many key holders. I mean, it's crazy. They still haven't reinstated sales of those.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, so yeah, so that's probably what I'm saying. I think it is a little bit more different than for Disneyland or Walt Disney World, but
Completely.
I'm still wondering if that's Disney's mentality.
Yeah.
To kind of get. Let me rephrase that. Not get rid of the annual pass holders entirely, but maybe they're trying to coerce people to kind of let their passes drop off.
Well, ideally, what I would want in Walt Disney World, if I were Walt Disney World, I would want more annual pass holders, and the reason that is because that gives you better financial predictability year over year as to how many people you're going to have in your parks. That's what's nice about Disneyland. Disneyland knows they have that financial predictability. They can look and say, "Hey, look, we got 80%, 70% of the people come through the turnstiles this year are annual pass holders. We know they're going to be here, rain or shine. Day." People, maybe not, So I would want that predictability. I would want to know that my parks are going to be full no matter what. And if that means opening the door to having more annual pass holders in the Walt Disney World Resort to solidify that, then that's the steps that I would take to make that happen. So it would actually be the inverse, George. I would actually try to create or incentivize more people to become annual pass holders.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's what I would do too. But do you think that's what do you think Disney's trying to do the opposite? Like in their minds? Like, do you think that they're trying to kind of cut back on the annual pass holders from actually going into the parks?
No, I don't think so. And again, if they did, then you would see less perks for annual pass holders. Such as,
I mean, I will speak for myself, Disney. No matter what you do, I'm always going to stay an annual pass holder, so you don't have to worry about me.
You can kind of tell where they want their annual pass holders based off of the discounts they provide. So right now, you see 20% off of dining. You see up to 35% off of hotels.
Right.
Outside of that, there's not.
But, and if we could actually touch upon this really quick, this was something that just dropped for Disney Plus subscribers, that starting tomorrow, if you purchase a non-discounted 4-night, 4-day Walt Disney World vacation package, now this is the caveat that I find quite interesting, that includes the room and has to be a park hopper ticket. I've never really seen a vacation package deal that, oh, by the way, and that would give you a free dining plan if you book that. If you're a Disney Plus subscriber starting tomorrow, if you book a 4-night, 4-day non-discounted Walt Disney World package, you get a free dining plan, but it has to include the room and a park hopper ticket. And that's valid starting July 1st to September 30th. But I thought that was quite interesting that it had to be a specific park hopper, because now there you go again with your regular day ticket holders. Now, because they're incentivizing to say, hey, if you purchase these tickets as a vacation package and stay on property, and also if you're a Disney Plus subscriber, you get a free dining plan. So essentially, us as annual pass holders right now, but I will say to that argument, I did get a great deal on a room as an annual pass holder, which is why I'm coming down in January.
Well, I think the Disney Plus thing is more about Disney Plus and boosting Disney Plus than it is about the parks, in my opinion. I think it's to incentivize more people to sign up for the streamer than it is about anything to do with the parks, in my opinion. Well, I think they're really trying to bolster Disney Plus. They're trying to make it profitable. That's kind of where I'm at.
Which is very smart. It's very smart that they're tying both of them together, because not only does it help Disney Plus, but it also helps the parks.
If you're a 4-quadrant company, you want to try to maximize incentives for every type of customer within within the umbrella of the brand. So if it's Disney Plus, subscribers, and you want to create more Disney Plus subscribers, and you find out that they go to the theme parks, but they don't have a Disney Plus subscription, then you're going to find a backdoor way through park incentivization to get them to become a Disney Plus subscriber. And then if historically, park hopping buddies have always been the best customers. On our park hopping customers have always been the best customers. Just from like a money perspective. I mean, if I'm running a park, I want park hoppers in my parks more so than day ticket people and annual pass holders.
Yeah, interesting. Let's continue.
As it gives them very good crowd projections for each park, so they know how much food they need, how many cast members they need on staff. But as a guest, you need a college degree in this stuff to even figure out all the nuances of it. There are way too many rules now. It's completely nuts. Disney, just pull the cord on this. Just get rid of the reservations. Just be done with it. There is way too much nuance to this for the average guest to understand, for even cast members to explain or understand themselves. It's a wild situation. The biggest news in this slate of changes going into effect on January 9th is that also on this day, the 2 p.m. park hopping rule is finally being lifted at long last for all ticket types. Meaning for the first time in almost 4 years, you'll soon be able to head to the Magic Kingdom, for example, for breakfast in the morning, and then you can hop right over to Epcot, no matter what the time is. So you don't have to wait until 2 p.m., as you have the last few years, to start using your park hopper option. Now, of course, this only applies to ticket types where you have that park hopper option enabled, but if you do, now you will not have to wait till 2 p.m. to use this paid perk. This is very exciting news. It's been amazing how slowly over the years we are just still seeing these 2020 era requirements just slowly be, taken off and us finally returning back to normal. We're still not even there yet, but we are getting closer here. And hopefully we're not too many days away from Disney just saying, okay, we're just going to be done with park reservations entirely. But there are reasons why they are still keeping them in effect for annual pass holders. And it might not just be data related. There might be reasons having to do with capacity issues because of the lack of things that there are to do at the parks relative to the crowds that are showing up. Last in the slate of changes set to kick into effect on January 9th, the Disney dining plan will be back in effect at restaurants across Walt Disney World. So if you have one, get on it, have fun using your Disney dining plan. And even if you're going to Walt Disney World and don't have a dining plan, now, January 9th and beyond, expect to start hearing again being asked, do you have the dining plan? Now, this really goes to show you where we are right now with Disney. After January 9th, there is not a single big change coming to Walt Disney World with an official definitive date set. Everything we're going to talk about, the rest of this video, is either a rough time frame that Disney themselves provided officially or it's a rough time frame that we obtained exclusively from our sources when we were researching this video, who have knowledge of these 2024 additions.
Speaking of Disney Plus. Oh man, okay.
And I am not kidding when I tell you, Imagineers working on some of these projects don't know themselves when these projects will be done. There is a lack of strong leadership at the parks right now between Josh D'Amaro, the parks chairman, and Walt Disney World president Jeff Valou. And of course, you have the Disney accountants who are micromanaging every little project. Imagineering is having a hard time moving forward on hardly anything. You have the development side problem where nobody can agree on anything, and there's no Walt Disney or Michael Eisner in the room who can issue a clear directive. And then you have the construction problems where accountants make the construction of a simple bake shop
Hey, OG, can
at the
you pause it
boardwalk
real quick?
into a multi.
Hey, do we have an exact date for the opening of Epic Universe?
We do not. We do not. We just know it's sometime, I believe, spring or summer of 2025, which apparently is okay with fans. I don't know. That's fine. But when Disney doesn't give you a date, hard date, it's a little different. You make a great point, Slimer. You make a great point.
Yep, that's weird, right?
Well, and then the criticism. There's a lot of criticism too about Disney sort of extending this stuff out, like the Bake Shop and their projects out over many fiscal years or fiscal periods. And I understand the frustration as a fan. We want it now. But you know what? Financially, it makes much more sense. It really, really does. And I know for certain that Universal has had they had to make some cuts with Epic Universe because they kept powering through the pandemic and the supply chain shortages and the cost of steel was higher and all that. And a lot of stuff, from what I'm hearing, like aesthetically, like theme stuff was cut from that park. And I think a large part of that is due to the fact that they don't do what Disney does, where they're extending it through. They just plow through. And now you're overpaying for steel because now you're going through a pandemic. It's just, I don't know. It makes sense. I get it. You're a fan and you want it now. But I think from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense.
Multi-year affair where they're trying to spread out the costs and contract as few workers as possible and just make it the cheapest possible thing that it can be by spreading out that expenditure over the years and putting as little capital into it, as little labor into it as possible. It is absolutely nuts. In the spring of 2024, Disney says Star Tours will be receiving a new mission centered around Ashoka. So we do have a somewhat solid commitment on that addition, that being something that will debut in the spring.
Ashoka? I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with Braden. I don't think he's a big Star Wars guy,
At both Walt Disney World and Disneyland. It is something new for Hollywood Studios, which is good. We haven't seen a whole lot new since Galaxy's Edge opened. So there is that if you are a fan of Ashoka and the Star Tours attraction, where things really become more exciting insofar as 2024 additions go, is this fall. So fall of 2024, that is when I strongly suspect most of the 2024 changes are going to finally materialize and be something manifest that we see in the parks. First up, we have one project that is really the exception to what I've been saying about how Imagineering can't, do anything. Their hands are totally tied. They're not really, nothing's getting green lit. Imagineering does in fact have a budget for a serious update to the Country Bears show in Frontierland at the Magic Kingdom, something that they are working on right now on the development end with the content for the show, where right now they are recording the Country Bears we know and love singing various iconic Disney songs in a very funny and lighthearted way. I've even heard that a couple of...
this is a smart update, I think, to this attraction, right? They've been wanting to update this because, problematic. I get it, but this is a smart thing to do. You're gonna add these Disney songs to it. So the normies, a soccer mom taking their kids, are gonna absolutely love this, And on top of that, you preserve a classic Disney World attraction. It's kind of a win-win for all sides. What are your thoughts on that, George?
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard the announcement for this project in particular, Destination D23, I was excited to the notion that they weren't getting rid of Country Bears, because I would rather see an update than them get rid of it completely. So the fact that this is how that they can keep the Bears kind of revitalized into a new way and bringing, more Disney to them, where the characters are even staying. The only character that's getting a little bit of an altered change is Liverlips McGraw. That will become Romeo McGraw. I mean, if they wanted to change his name, that's perfectly fine. I would have just came up with something just a little bit more, I don't know, copacetic to the character than Romeo.
Romeo is like a smooth, like 90s R&B singer to me.
Yeah.
I like Romeo,
Yeah.
like you're going to have like Jodeci and Romeo perform.
But other than that, I'm very curious and excited. I'm glad that they're still keeping all the characters as they are essentially, but just kind of updating with, a new style and adding like Disney tunes to their roster. So that's kind of cool.
The existing songs in the existing show will in fact be sticking around. And the big deal with this Country Bears update isn't just the new songs Imagineering is recording as we speak, it's also the next generation animatronic upgrades the show will be receiving soon, where hydraulics will be replaced with modern servo motors, ensuring that we will have the Country Bears in the Magic Kingdom for a long time to come. The timeline for this that I have heard is in the spring, the existing Country Bears show will close for refurbishment, and then come this fall, if all goes well, the updated show will premiere to guests. And everyone working on this seems to be really happy with what they're working on so far. So just based on that positive sentiment from our sources alone, I'm going to say this is something that we can definitely look forward to in this next year, in 2024. It's not every day that in the current bureaucracy, you see creatives at the parks really excited with what they're working on bringing to guests. A lot of time they just say, well, Braden, it was an honor to work on it, and they really don't say much more than that. But on this project in particular, there does seem to be some excitement. So we'll see how that turns out. Also this fall, and this one is an official time frame from Disney, after over 4 years of downtime, the Voyage of the Little Mermaid at Disney's Hollywood Studios.
Actually, this is kind of off topic, but kind of relates to what actually we were just talking about a little bit ago with the dates. That's Slimer, you brought up the Epic Universe date, right? If we have an exact date. Do we even know? Because I hear this criticism a lot with Tiana as well. We haven't gotten any information. Why haven't we seen the animatronics? Why haven't we seen this? Why haven't we seen that? Why aren't we getting boatloads of information? No pun intended, boatloads. But why haven't we seen, a ton of information on this attraction? I mean, how much information do we know officially from Universal about any of these attractions over at Epic Universe? Have they taken us inside the monster ride or any of this stuff? I mean, it just seems a little bit of a double standard. I just feel like, this. But
we have to take in consideration, OG. Universal isn't up to Disney standards. We don't worry about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, they're not up to Disney standards until you want to crap on them. Then they're beating Disney.
Then they're
It's when you call them out on their mistakes, then suddenly, we don't hold them accountable because they're number two, but. When they build something good, it's they're better than Disney. People want to have it both ways, basically.
And OG, you got a Universal annual pass. I've been going to Universal Studios since opening year in 1990. George, I'm pretty sure you love Universal too, man. Mm-hmm. I'm probably going to go this year. It's been a couple years since I've been, but I'm not crying because they don't give me day and dates. I mean, who's complaining about the Fast X roller coaster not having a date, or Halloween Horror Nights in Las Vegas not having a date? They don't have dates. We have time frames, just like the attractions coming to the Walt Disney World Resort.
And is it really?
But nobody's complaining about it.
And is it really putting a halt on the number of guests that are walking through the turnstiles every day? I don't see any change. I don't see anyone kind of protesting and picketing and taking it to the streets to say, we didn't get no opening date on this, so we're boycotting Disney to not walk into the turnstiles until we get a date and time. It's like, people don't care. If they're going to go to Disney, they're going to go to Disney to have a good time. When something is ready to be open, it'll open,
Yes.
I know.
Yep. The animation courtyard area will return as an updated show, which will be called The Little Mermaid, a musical adventure. Why Disney had to change the name of the show and completely redo the show, it's probably so that they don't have to hire as many equity actors to run the show. Who knows? But now they're gonna have to redo the whole facade, the signage and all of that. So there's another expense for you. We always hear about it. Disney wants to save money, and then we always get all these like random tweaks that seem totally unnecessary. But we will see how that new show turns out. It should be quite similar to what we had with Voyage of the Little Mermaid. Around this same fall time frame, perhaps even a little earlier if you want to be bullish, over at Epcot, the Communicore Hall and Plaza will be opening in the middle of the park with that all-new building, which will feature an indoor portion for festival activities and an outdoor area for live entertainment. The building will also be home to an indoor Mickey and Friends meet and greet area, which was included in this project due to the abandonment of the Play Pavilion plan for the Wonders of Life Pavilion, which, as you recall, was going to become the meet and greet hub for Epcot. And now that project is, it seems like, indefinitely on hold or pretty much just totally off the table at this point. For the time being, it appears that the classic Disney character meet and greets in Epcot will be picking back up exactly where they used to be when this used to be Innoventions West, but now it'll be in this new building constructed on the same spot. The hope at Disney is that the Communicore Hall area will be ready in time for next year's Epcot Food and Wine Festival, which is likely to start in July. But given some conversations that our viewers had with Imagineers on the opening day where you had the Walt statue and all that debut in Epcot, it seemed that the Imagineers were unwilling to say definitively if this would be ready in the summer, in the spring, in 2024 even, which was a bit concerning. So it could be that this building opens sometime during the Food and Wine Festival, perhaps in the fall. So the earliest that I would promise this Communicore Hall building and say that you should expect it to be open is the fall. But I do think that this is something that could be
I just have to say, regardless of opening date or whatever, I don't know what these are called, these panels. I just call them the Epcot, the Spaceship Earth panels, basically. But I think that's going to be a real nice kind of compliment, I think, to Spaceship Earth to have that on the buildings across from it. I don't know. What do you think about that, Slimer? I'm kind of digging that.
No, I agree, dude. I think incorporating the Buckminster Fuller, geodesic, texturized, whatever they went with the ball there, incorporating different aspects of World Celebrations, a really good idea. Ties it all in. It's not going to be the only structure with that surface now. So I agree with you. And then the way that it looks is that there's going to be pylons with lights right outside of it, and probably additional lighting that's not there now that's going to reflect off of that surface. So that way you have, just a palette of colors on the on the surface of that building at all times once the sun goes down. I dig it. I think that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, me too. What about you, George? What are you feeling?
Oh, absolutely. I think that would look phenomenal, especially Epcot is, for me, is what I call like a really great nighttime park. So when you kind of tie it all in together and everything, it'll be perfect.
Wait till you go now, dude. It's even better now.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when we were there in the summer, it was still with all those construction walls and everything.
Right.
Ready this summer if Disney put their money where their mouth is, finished this project, and got it open. It is pretty far along. Also in the fall of 2024, it is projected that the DVC Tower at Disney's Polynesian Village Resort will begin welcoming guests. And remember, there are also new cabins Disney announced last year, which should be nearing completion around the same time as the unnamed DVC Tower at the Polynesian. Moving over to Disney's Animal Kingdom, also during this broad, very approximate fall 2024 timeframe, I expect two things to happen. First, It's Tough to Be a Bug will close to make way for the Zootopia update announced at last year's Destination D23 event. We've heard Disney wants to get that update started before they close another attraction that also eats up a lot of guests at Disney's Animal Kingdom. We're going to be losing a lot of capacity in this park this year. Dinosaur, that is also something that will be closing this fall, I do believe, which will then begin its update into Indiana Jones. Now, Disney says that this is still an idea. It's in its idea stage, so nothing is definite here, but barring some sort of black swan event, some sort of stock market crash, things of this nature, it should set up that we see It's a Bug's Life and Dinosaur close sometime in this fall area of the year. Now, this update to Dinosaur is quite interesting because it already shares the ride system that you have with Indiana Jones Adventure out in Disneyland. But I do want to note that this is not going to have the same interior. It is another Indiana Jones attraction, which uses the same vehicles, but this attraction is going to be focused on a Mayan theme, which, according to our sources working on the project, will, believe it or not, perhaps tie into the theme of the park more than we expect, where it may be more focused on the real life culture of this underdeveloped region of the world.
You know, it's interesting. You know, people kind of criticize, and myself included initially, you know, what does Indiana Jones have to do with animals? Well, to be fair, what does Expedition Everest have to do with animals? Right. It's more about the culture, you know. It's more Asian inspired. I mean, you have the Yeti, you know, but for the most part, it's not about animals at all. But what are your thoughts on this, Slimer? What are you feeling? You feeling this kind of approach, this Mayan temple approach for Indy?
Yeah, when I first heard that it was going to be more Mayan based and not a carbon copy of the rides over in Disneyland Tokyo and in Disneyland here, I actually got really excited because now the Imagineers have the flexibility to create something different. And anytime you give them flexibility to create something different, usually they do something remarkable and out of the box, and it'll be a new experience. I'm really open to it. I also think that Animal Kingdom, despite it being Animal Kingdom, is part, you know, international culture, and it is also dedicated to animals. You know, historically, it's been impossible to separate the two, right? I mean, like, look at the United States. You know, we have an eagle as our you know, national animal. So, you know, find a culture that doesn't have you know, some kind of animal iconography, and also, you know, I got a bridge to sell you.
Yep, exactly.
And less just on Indiana Jones as an intellectual property. But it will feature Indy in there, which will aid in the marketing of the reimagined dinosaur attraction. All this is to say, if you're going to Disney anytime soon, make sure to pay your last respects to It's Tough to Be a Bug and Dinosaur, because barring some sort of Black Swan event, as I said, which could affect Disney's access to capital in 2024, these two attractions should be closed come late 2024. Finally, arriving at late 2024 openings, we have the time zone where we are currently expecting Tiana's Bayou Adventure will make its world premiere at the Magic Kingdom in what is Frontierland, at least currently. If you look at the latest exterior progress on this attraction, it doesn't seem like it's really trying to fit in with the existing street that you have in Frontierland. As we talked about a lot last year, I believe that this area is going to become a New Orleans area, which is sort of going to be like a mini New Orleans Square, where across the street from Splash Mountain, Pecos Bills will be rethemed into a Tiana themed restaurant, a Bayou themed restaurant, which will help with this area sort of having its own identity and its own theme that isn't just relegated to this one mountain.
So a couple things. Number one, I actually am liking this more and more the more I see. I know it's unpopular opinion, you know, but I do. Yeah, it's different than Splash Mountain, you know, but that's the point. You know what I'm saying? Mission Breakout is very different than the Hollywood Tower Hotel. That's the point. So this is nice. This is very nice. This is pretty much what I expected, you know, a Frozen Ever After kind of approach, right? It's going to be something similar to that, I think, inside. There are people that criticize the thrill aspect of this attraction. You know, you have a princess ride, you know, it's for kids, young people, but there's a drop. I would point to Harry Potter, Forbidden Journey. I mean, you have a height requirement on that, don't you? I mean, that's not exactly a slow little meandering ride either. That's pretty intense, even though it's not, you know, a roller coaster or whatever. And that, I mean, you can make the case that, you know, Harry Potter is also for kids. So I don't really see the issue here. But what are your thoughts on this, Slimer?
Where does the criticism come from? I mean, it's the same ride as Splash Mountain. They're just reskinning it.
I guess the criticism is that because now you're theming it to a princess and little kids like princesses, and there's a height requirement.
What?
And yet they more so decorated, I will say. California Screamin' to the Incredicoaster. So, I mean, it still involves the Incredibles. So that's more of a kid-friendly type of IP, but you would still have a height requirement because of the roller
Splash
coaster.
Mountain had a height requirement.
Yeah.
Right. But they're just saying because they're taking something
Tiana.
of Tiana because it's more of a princess.
Like for little girls or whatever. So it's like you're going to have this thing that's attracting a young demo and they can't ride it. But I point to a lot of things. Aren't they building a troll roller coaster over there at Universal right now? And I'm sure that's going to have a height requirement. It's a coaster. So I don't really
Are they
understand.
implying because it's based off of princesses that there can't be any thrill associated with it?
No, they're more so saying because there's a height requirement that if young kids, because they want to see a Tiana ride, and if they're not tall enough, then they can't experience it.
Okay, explain that to OSHA, but yeah, all right.
Looks like a rainforest cafe. Now, something I've been thinking about as of late, which we really haven't covered at all, and I'm not sure Disney's really thought much about it either, unfortunately, is the Splash Mountain play area.
This
Do you
is a
guys
big
remember
deal.
that little kids area, the play area that is under the train station? It's like the shaded area where there was this area that you could play, where kids could hang out and beat the heat, and families would sit around nearby. Well, Disney is in the process of demolishing that play area. And it's sad to me because it feels like these updates we're getting, they result in us having less to do than before, right? We look at what Universal...
That might be the case. But I've just seen the imagery about that little play area. It's pretty cheap. It looks like a McDonald's playland. I mean, I get it. I get what he's saying, right? You're getting rid of that, assuming they don't replace it with something else. We still don't know. They might. Yeah. But really?
Quality over quantity?
Yeah, I would put, right? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, George? That little play area, you think that's...
Yeah, I mean, give or take, it was always okay. I kind of, it wasn't really like my thing where it was, even when I took my son down there when he was younger, he didn't even really, he was just more so, he wanted to go on the ride. He couldn't give two shits about a little play area. And that was him at 4 years old, you know, but,
yeah, I mean, I don't know, I get it, but here's the other thing too. And look, Braden makes a good case, look, Disney World, they tend to replace or, a lot of stuff, but here's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that needs work. I'm not saying that Splash Mountain necessarily did, that's a different animal, but like, you look at, like, for example, what happened over there with Hollywood Studios, with Galaxy's Edge, and stuff like that. There was a lot of dated stuff that they're replacing here. So it's not like these parks, they're addressing these problem areas basically first before they kind of go into untapped areas. It's not necessarily a bad idea. Now, look, I don't agree with every one of these decisions. I think that, they could have kept the Great Movie Ride and had Mickey and Minnie's, but I don't know. I think there's a little nuance here. I don't necessarily think it's necessarily completely bad that they're doing that, because you don't want to necessarily just build new stuff and keep a lot of outdated stuff in the mix either, right? You want to address those outdated areas.
Universal's doing, and not to do like a whole Disney Universal thing, but just as an example, Universal is expanding. They are taking things that are currently nothing and they're making them into something. Whereas what Disney's doing is they're trying to maintain what they have. They're updating things that they currently have. This isn't an expansion. And in fact, it seems like they might be taking away from what was already here. And not even getting into Splash Mountain versus Tiana or anything like that. We haven't seen the final product yet. Even just, if you look at the numbers of all of it, Disney continues building more and more hotels. More and more hotels keep being built around Disney. So we keep having all these new people that are in the Disney area that want to go to Disney, that are coming into Disney. And then once they get there, there are the same or fewer things to do than there were before, when there were fewer hotel rooms and fewer guests.
Okay, so this is actually something I agree with Braden on. Not talking about Tiana's Bayou Adventure. If they wanted to retheme Splash Mountain to that, perfectly fine. But my issue is more so with Walt Disney World than Disneyland, is Walt bought this amount of land so he cannot repeat himself with Disneyland to have the quote-unquote blessing of size. There's enough land there to dream up all the imaginative dreams that the Imagineers can do for years to come. But yet, they are still stuck in this kind of bubble that there are attractions that may be a little bit outdated, or then you take them out and you reskin them. And I had this conversation with on the phone earlier with Slimer as well about with Dino Land. Yes, I do know that Dino Land desperately needs a facelift. It needs a change. It was one of the original lands of the park. Then they added Chester and Hester's Dino-Rama, which really wasn't an upgrade. It was more of a downgrade to me, but what have you. So I can understand that. But at the same time, if you are going to replace an attraction with an attraction, you have to add something. Because you have to give probable cause to say, you know what, it really is growing. It's not just sustaining the same amount of attractions. And that's the problem with Walt Disney World is they have so much land to get creative, but they're not utilizing it.
What are your thoughts on that, Slimer? What you feel?
No, yeah, I agree. They need to get out of the the state of replacing and the state of building. Now they have built, and they can't always build new things too. I think that's one thing that we need to come to terms with as well, because they did add 2 Galaxy's Edges. They did create Toy Story Land. That required a lot of new development and a lot of new infrastructure, and it also requires new employees, and it also requires new restaurants and new food. So we're not saying they're not doing that, but maybe it's the fandom. Maybe the fandom is focusing too much on them, reskinning and replacing one ride with another. But if the parks are getting to the point where they're not a good experience due to crowd capacities being always at their limits, then they need to expand into new areas. I mean, the Animal Kingdom has a lot of expansion opportunities outside of Pandora, east of Rafiki's Watch, right there north of the Everest ride. There's a lot of expansion areas. It's a good argument. It's one that I would entertain. How much of that is wishful thinking versus, realistic business opportunities, though? That's a completely different conversation.
Absolutely.
Going to the park. So when you look at these wait times on these holiday weekends, and they're crazy, and to do Lightning Lane or Genie Plus, it's like $30 per person or something. No wonder that's the case. We get constant new hotel capacity, yet the few additions that we have.
You guys saw those wait times that he just posted? How they're like 330, 150.
Let me see. Let me go back. Oh
no, it's a little more ahead. Yeah, right there. If you just let it play out.
$30 per person or something. No wonder that's the case. We get constant new hotel capacity.
Yeah, maybe it's a few
additions that.
But anyways, it was he posted some wait times. One was like 150, another one was like 330 minutes, and then another was like another 100-some minutes. But what he didn't show you is that there are rides that simultaneously on those days have 5 to 15-minute waits simultaneously. So you have a big disparity between really popular rides and very unpopular rides. So why would you build a whole new land or build a whole new ride if all you have to do is reskin an attraction that already exists, already has the infrastructure, that already has employees associated to it, reskin it for a fraction of the price, and you can bring that average wait time from 5 to 25 minutes, let's say.
Right.
With a fraction of the investment of building a new land or a new ride system.
Yeah, no, 100%. And these places are in different, like I said earlier on the show, a lot of fans aren't going to want to hear that, what I'm saying? But the fact of the matter is Disney World is a much more mature resort than Universal right now. Universal's in growth mode. Disney World is more in more of a evolution, or maybe like, kind of polishing up what they currently have. It just makes more sense to take that approach,
have in the pipeline here are all updates to existing people eaters, to existing attractions that already eat up tons of guests and contribute capacity to the parks. Disney's closing these for years and years, which reduces the capacity in the parks, which I think is a big reason why Disney isn't fully getting rid of park reservations, because Disney's park operations are well aware of this deficiency. And what it means is longer lines and pushing guests towards paying for all these upcharges, all these additional in-app purchases with Genie Plus and Lightning Lane. Not to mention there's less for kids to do. Here you have the play area being demolished, and even the ride itself, is a ride themed around a food co-op really aimed at children. It doesn't really seem like that's the target audience. And even for adults, which Disney seems to be trying to attract, after all, adults are the ones with the money. Well, what about guests who already bought flights, bought hotels, bought rental cars, bought Disney tickets, bought tons of food, bought tons of merchandise? After you've done all those things, what is left for you to do besides wait in extremely long lines at these overly strained existing attractions? That is the main current issue at Walt Disney World right now, besides the funding problem. The executives, they are not putting the money into the parks that we need, but it's also about where that money goes. We need expansions at the existing parks. People talk about a fifth park. The current executives are not building a fifth park. That's out of the...
And they shouldn't build a fifth park.
Exactly.
Because the average family can only go on vacation for so long. So you're going to you have 4 parks, you have 2 water parks. You got Universal now with going to be 3 parks and a water park. What are you going to do? How much time do people have to take off of work? How much money do people have to spend on these vacations and hit everything up? It's not feasible anymore.
Well, and if you build a 5th gate, that's going to then take away even to what these other 4 parks are thriving to have, and it's more to do. So you're going to build a 5th park and have very little to do there, so you can go to each park and say, okay, this is going to be a half-day experience. This is going to be the existing 4 parks. And I even include Magic Kingdom in this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, before I went to Disneyland, I would say, no, Magic Kingdom is good. The other parks. After experiencing Disneyland and then going back to Magic Kingdom still needs to have a lot more stuff to do. Because in comparison to Disneyland, it falls quite short. To be honest.
You saw the map. You saw the wait times that I sent you at Magic Kingdom earlier today.
I did.
The wait times were, it was ridiculous, and that's with over 30 attractions there. I think there were at least 3 or 4 rides that had over 100, 120, 2-hour wait times, and that's there. And it wasn't any better at Animal Kingdom. And the people that go to Magic Kingdom, I think one good point that Braden makes here is the lack of, I would say, the lack of attractions for the smaller kids, like really small kids. You know what I mean? I think the example that he gave wasn't a good example, but he does have a valid point. And the reason there's a lack of things for little kids to do, and I think we know this because of how crowded Magic Kingdom is. It's like parents only go there; they don't go to any of the other parks because of the lack of things to do for their under 6-year-olds.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
What do you guys think about that? Do you guys think there's a lack of things to do for smaller children, Hollywood, Animal Kingdom?
Yeah, I've only been to these places I had that one visit back in July. We did Epcot twice, we did Animal Kingdom twice, but Animal Kingdom does need a little fleshing out in terms of stuff to do. Personally, for me, I'm an atmosphere guy, so for me, it's good the way it is. Honestly, personally, but I can see where if you have kids or whatever, you're going to want to have a little more to do over there. So I get that point, but you're right though, Slimer. The example he used with the Splash Mountain, that little thing crammed under that, what was it, like a walk, you crawl through it or something? It's just one little tunnel like that, and that's it.
Yeah, like you said, it's like a McDonald's playground area.
Yeah, come on. Was that a big draw? Really, realistically, it's but your overall point though is correct in that maybe they could use some more kid stuff. But if we're going to add more kid stuff, let's get some quality kid stuff, And
I think that's the angle they're taking by introducing Encanto in Animal Kingdom, because that's a park they can really use, things for smaller kids to do. Like take the parents and take the families. Give them something that they can do other than the Magic Kingdom, because right now that's the big issue in Walt Disney World is that, parents with smaller children, all they do is go to Magic Kingdom. They might go to Animal Kingdom. They might go to Epcot. Probably won't. And if they do go to Epcot, they're there for 2 days, 2 hours and they're out.
Right.
Because they won't even see World Showcase, or they'll go right to Ratatouille. And then you have the problem where Ratatouille has a 150-minute wait and Frozen has a 110-minute wait, because those are the only 2 kids rides. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they gotta even it out of those parks a little bit. So you can't complain that they're putting Encanto in there and then complain that there aren't enough things to do for little kids in those parks.
It's true. It's very true.
question. We need expansions at the existing parks.
And to your point too, real quick, and a lot of people complain about, okay, they're not enough for kids, but then they also complain that they put Frozen into the World Showcase. It's like, well, wait a minute, it's like
damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Every time.
Pretty badly. There need to be more things to do, more places for guests to populate.
Today, we're introducing the next chapter of Notion AI. It's called Q&A.
Big and small. So here's to hoping that Disney makes this area into something, a Tiana themed play area, something for children, hopefully. But given what Disney did with the former Innovations and the fountain area at the heart of Epcot, replacing all of that with planters and ultimately food booths, which generate revenue, it's likely that we can expect more of the same in areas like this. And I know there's going to be people who say, Braden, I came here to get hyped up about Disney in 2024. Why are you being negative? This year, I'm just going to cease entertaining the Disney shills, who have no clue what's really happening at the company. So from their perspective, it's, oh, you're being negative. Oh, you're just, trying to get views or whatever. I started this channel to be somewhere where you could hear good news about exciting new park expansions. Something where you finish a long day at work, you come home, you turn on MickeyViews, and you get to learn about all the new exciting stuff that you have to look forward to on your next vacation. But guess what? We aren't getting that right now. And there is a reason why we aren't getting big new things coming to Walt Disney World. There are leaders in this company, and they are doing a terrible job. And we are going to expose that here on this channel. Imagineering is working on bringing us stuff. They have endless ideas of things that they could do, endless ideas for Josh tomorrow to go up on stage and tell us he's considering. But you know what happens? Every single one of these, almost all of them, end up getting shut down as soon as they are proposed by none other than Jeff Valou at Walt Disney World, who is extremely cheap. And in the meantime, Disney is losing talent. Self-respecting creatives are leaving and going to greener pastures. And I'm not just talking about Universal. We're going to start covering some other things, some other places Imagineers are going where there's some very exciting stuff going on. And it's not Disney. And the creatives who are masochistic enough to stick around or are like me and say, hey, maybe things will turn around. I'm still a huge Disney fan. I believe in Walt and all of this. Right now, they're in the process of doing a reorg at Imagineering where right now nobody knows who's even in charge, where they put in lights in the middle of Epcot and then they're power washed and then they're immediately broken and the Imagineers aren't sure who's supposed to do what. It's an absolute mess. We have cost cuts happening on important maintenance on the park attractions, especially at Walt Disney World, and we're going to get into this.
I'm not saying Braden's being hyperbolic, but there has to be a grain of hyperbole in there.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Okay, respectfully, to Braden.
Right.
The beginning, when he starts to say the shills just don't know what they're talking, or the shills are out of touch, or they don't know what they're talking about. It's like, yeah, but I could say the same thing about the big mouth bad crowd that just hate everything too. And I'm not saying Braden's part of that crowd. I'm not saying that. No, I think there's extremes on both ends. I mean, there are shills, but there's also people that just hate everything too. Are they more connected to reality? I don't think so. So I think it goes both ways, in my opinion. I think that there is nuance to this stuff, and you're right, Slimer. I mean, there's a lot of not hyperbole, but it's like hyperbole. I don't know what else to call it, but it's like a little bit extreme, you know what I'm saying? But go on,
just a little bit. Like I feel like the Imagineers leaving, but Imagineers move around all the time, man. Universal, like every Imagineer is almost always a Universal creative, and vice versa, or they've done something for Busch Gardens or SeaWorld.
Right. I mean, and just a year ago, I just showed you that article about this mass exodus at Universal Creative. If that happened at Disney, can you imagine?
It's like Scott Trowbridge used to work over at Universal. He worked on The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, moved over to Disney, worked on Galaxy's Edge. So one can make that argument too to say, oh my gosh, Universal lost Scott Trowbridge. What are we going to do? He's over at Disney. They're going to get a run for our money this time. It's like they bounce back and forth. Hell, I'm for sure that there could be somebody working at both Disney and Universal at the exact same time. We don't know that. They're not going to give their business.
No, and you're right. And you guys are right. I mean, they do bounce around a lot. And in general, the entertainment industry does that too. And the studio side of things, you have these the talent goes back and forth between the studios. Sometimes they go 6 months without work, and then they work 6 months on. This is just how things work. And I get what he's saying. I understand the concern. I do believe his heart's in the right place with Braden, 100%. I know he loves this stuff, but I think at the same time, in my opinion, while I do think there's issues right now, it's not perfect by any means. We talk about Josh Jamar all the time on this show.
And that's where I agree with him on that. That's where the issues come from. It comes from the leadership.
Yes. Well, yeah, but I mean, there's issues, but at the same time, I think we can go too far with it too. You know what I'm saying? I think that it's somewhere in the middle. Usually, the truth usually lies in the gray area,
right?
And
which is basically on top of tomorrow's head.
This year, we're going to cover some of the maintenance stuff going on because it's getting really bad. We have some specific examples of maintenance cuts happening on the attractions at Walt Disney World, which are seriously concerning. And all the while, the folks who are leading Walt Disney World and leading Disney, they just seem to be running out the clock. Meanwhile, they're just collecting their paycheck, they're collecting their bonuses, and they're doing this at the expense of the future performance and the reputation of these parks that Walt and his disciples worked so tirelessly to create over so many years. So in 2024, I'm going to continue to do exactly what I've been doing and what I've been moving towards, which is reporting the news as a true fan who is concerned about the health of this great resort and tell you exactly what is going on.
And here's the thing. I made a video. We had a video like a few weeks ago where I believe in people should have a voice. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't believe like, oh, well, he's negative, so he shouldn't be able to have a platform or this, that, and the other. Absolutely not. Braden is obviously a very passionate guy about this stuff, and he's very concerned, and he has every right to that content, and we have every right to our content and the approach that we have. So good for him for doing that. And, respect that he's passionate about this, and he's going to continue to do what he wants to do, despite the fact that he's getting criticism and heat for it. I respect that a whole lot. What are your thoughts, George?
Yeah, I mean, I think there comes a time and place where you are allowed to have the concern and voice out your opinion. That's your God-given right. It's and I do feel like we're all kind of concerned right now, like which way the company is going. I think if it would to be a little bit more communicated a little bit better between the company of Disney to us fans. I feel like not saying like to give us what we're looking for, to say, okay, we want something brand new each year, every year moving forward. No. But I think that if they was to give us a clear, concise statement of like what their plans are and not dilute it and sugarcoat it by making us play the guessing game, I think that's a big issue too.
I was actually just talking about this with Jay Shear, contributor here on the channel, Jay Shear. I was just talking about this with him on Twitter about how PR is probably Disney's biggest problem. Like a lot of people, like on YouTube and what have you, they talk about the financial end of the spectrum for when it comes to Disney and its problems. The financial end of things, I think they're on the mend and they're going in the right direction. They're going to figure that out. It's the PR that they're struggling with. You have Lucasfilm makes a lot of PR mistakes. You have Daddy Josh up here. I think that these expos where he gets up there and he doesn't really, he does the whole maybe what if thing. I mean, that kills fan morale. That's a major PR problem. You had Bob Iger put his foot in his mouth about the strikes, things like that. I think these things are a bigger issue, because then it gets on social media and it spreads like wildfire. And then there almost becomes this animosity towards Disney, right? That's a way bigger issue than anything on Disney's plate right now. And they do got to address that. They do have to. I mean, look, if I was Bob Iger, I would get his old PR lady on the phone. I think her name is Xenia, or if I'm not mistaken, Xenia, I believe, or Zunia.
Yes.
I would get her on the phone because she did a phenomenal job with him the first time around. No disrespect to Christine Shockey, who's there now, but it's like I just see a big difference in the PR, even company wide, than we did back a few years ago. So they need to really address that. And look, if what Braden is saying is true, where it's Jeff Volley kind of knocking this stuff down, well, Bob Iger needs to address that. He needs to talk to Daddy Josh and say, hey, get your boy in check, because if that's true, because look, Iger's coming out there saying, well, we want to invest $60 billion. We want to go all in on parks. If you're going to have this executive in Florida knocking stuff down, that's kind of like working against what Iger is trying to do here with the company, right?
Well,
and you got to be on the same page.
Well, and that's where it's kind of lost in translation for me when it comes to Jeff Volley. That's like if we have a boss and our boss's boss is saying, okay, we got to do this as for the company. And then my boss then says, okay, me and my team are going to present this to you, but I'm going to deny it and turn it away. I'd probably be fired in a flip of a hat right there and then. So in a way, again, I'm not, if it is what it is, then it is, then I must have missed the train, because I really didn't know that the president of the resorts had really a final say so of what really can be greenlit and what could not, because otherwise I would think that they would be the ones on the stage doing the presenting other than the chairman.
I don't know if it's a final say. I think what it is more like a ladder, right? So I think these projects kind of work their way up this ladder, and Valley is one of those steps, and I guess it's getting knocked down on the Valley step. That's what Braden is saying. I'm saying I can't confirm. I don't.
Right.
I don't know what his sources are saying.
Right.
But that's basically what he's saying. I mean, they do have power, obviously, but it's not.
See, but I thought the president is more so of the day-to-day operations of how the resort is run, not necessarily what goes in it. Like when they get the notion of saying, hey, this is what's going to go here, just be prepared. It may affect your operations. This is how it's. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be completely ignorant on the notion of how that goes, but I just find it quite interesting of how when issues occur now it's being looked upon at the president of Walt Disney World when it was never looked upon before. So why is now the president in the main focus with tomorrow?
What are your thoughts on that, Slimer?
I mean, he is in the upper management chain. To what effect, budget approvals or disapprovals falls within the scope of his role, I don't know. I can only imagine that it happens as a committee. I'm pretty sure that there are multiple departments involved in what gets approved and unapproved, and it probably takes 6 months to a year just to approve a new ride, if I had to guess. And I'm sure he's involved. I'm sure Josh Tomorrow's involved. I'm sure, the CFO and the CEO are involved. Anytime they approve, $1 billion for a new attraction or $2 billion for new land, for that matter, it doesn't fall on the shoulders of one individual. So to single out Jeff Volley, I feel like it's unfair to him.
Although I will say, though, if he is part of the contributing factor as to why things aren't progressing, Jeff, you got to go balls to the Vols, man. Let's go.
Balls to the Vols. I love that. But at the same time, though, I'm sure the guest experience is a KPI that they look at. Like NPS scores when they do the exit polls, and they want to know what the guests thought of their experience there. But they're looking at aggregates. You know what I mean? And then if there is something they can tweak with regard to the guest experience, they're looking at it from all sides, and they say, okay, well, how can we increase the guest experience, with as the most, from the most cost effective place possible. You know what I mean? If there's nothing wrong with the guest experience, then why would they put new CapEx into it? If your KPIs are all good, you're hitting over 100% on everything. The guest experience is a 4.7 out of 5. And all your exit polls are telling you everybody had a great time. They wouldn't change anything. Yeah, everybody has their nitpicks, But what's the rush? Like what is telling them, hey, we really got to drop $2 billion into this place, or else the guests are going to get pissed off. They're not seeing those numbers.
No,
if you look at key performance indicators of how your company's doing, NPS scores, I can guarantee you that they're not looking at what the 1% of Disney fans, or the very small voice of the Disney fans in the community that are complaining that they these complaints that some complaints are legitimate, some a little hyperbolic, but I don't think they factor into the bigger decisions being made. And I think that's why we're not seeing them jump at the bit to make $2 to $3 billion investments every year, like we want them to.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. It's the parks are still doing very healthy based on these, quarterly earnings and stuff. I know as fans, we want them to react or respond to Epic Universe and this, that, and the other. But the smart thing to do from a business perspective is to wait. Why are you going to pour, like you said, Slimer, billions of dollars into a response that you might not even need? We're all assuming, or fans are assuming, that Epic Universe is going to be this big game changer that's going to, we don't know the impact of Epic Universe yet. I've been saying for a long time, and I have friends that are really into Universal that DM me all the time, and they have concerns that this park might cannibalize the other Universal parks. If that is happening, that puts a huge dent into the success of this park. It's not the same equation anymore. You know what I'm saying? Universal really has to maintain what they have and add one more day. Can they do that? Maybe they will, but we don't know yet. We don't know the impact. So why is Disney going to throw billions into a response that might not need that kind of response? And it's not like the Walt Disney Company is going to collapse or go under if they don't respond immediately when Epic Universe opens. They have time to wait it out. They waited it out with Wizarding World, and they were just fine. You know what I'm saying? They didn't respond immediately. It's okay to wait. Sometimes it's good to sit back, look at what you have on the chessboard, and react accordingly. You don't want to panic and make these rash decisions.
Honestly, my personal opinion with all of this, and when I mean all of this, I mean this whole entire scope of like how Disney was perceived to have the target on their back and the limelight of this and that, whether it's through the fans, whether it's through corporations, whether it's through politics. I'm going to be just quite frank and just go out and say it, and I'm going to go balls to the wall on this because this is what I do.
Did you say balls to the wall, George?
I did.
Hold on. I gotta. If you're going to go this balls to the wall, I gotta. There we go, buddy.
But I personally feel when 2020 came and the world changed and everything became a standstill and no one knew when we were going to get back to our regular lives, when society was going to move forward. We were all sitting at home, basically waiting for something to happen, not knowing if it was going to happen. And I feel like when we all, as a community, as a society, as a human, we ended up going back out into the world had changed.
Yeah.
And I feel like whether you're a individual peon, just as a Disney diehard fan, or whether you're a major corporation, or whether you're a politician working in the government, what have you, I feel like we just, as a human race, just got so jumped up with what had occurred that it almost gave us a whole complete reset of how we view and value life. Because prior to 2020, and I'm going to just bring it up, when 9/11 happened, we all came together as humans, as a country, even into the world. Yeah, there were still times during that we all had disagreements and what have you, but that wasn't the same that happened of what went on from 2020 moving forward. And it's unfortunate, really. And I just think that the people just have a different outlook on things, and especially social media doesn't help at all.
No. And like I said before, as fans, fandom, if you're in a fandom, any fandom, it doesn't have to be Disney, it could be anything. Typically fans have more in common than disagreements. We tend to go after each other on the little stuff, here and there, but at the end of the day, we all kind of share a common passion. You know what I'm saying? We're all fans of this stuff. Like we just had a great video by MickeyViews. We went through it. We disagree with him on a lot. Yeah. But at the end of the day, right? I think we love the parks as much as he does. Yeah.
And we respect his opinion. We respect his content. Right. Whether we agree with it or not. And that's perfectly fine. I'm completely, into the mindset that I can disagree with somebody. They can disagree with me.
Yeah.
Just don't piss me off.
And there's and the thing about the thing about being in this community is that there's a lot of people that like to philosophize about Disney, and there's a lot of people that like to experience Disney organically, which is in the parks.
Right.
And those are two different languages, and they don't see eye to eye a lot of times, Sure. And then there's some people like us, like we do both. I know, OG, you go to Disneyland on the weekends, once a week or once a month. I try to go to Walt Disney World, 1 to 2 times a month if I can. George goes balls to the walls and goes about 1 to 2 times a year, but then he's there for like 10 days at a time. So he catches up with us by doing it in 1 week shot or 2 week shot. So we all go the same amount of times per year. But there's vloggers that go every day. Like look at Resort TV 1, 4K WDW, Tim Trackers, Adam the Woo. I'm Tam J. I mean, super enthused. They have a completely different perspective of the parks that the park philosophizers have, and us, the part timers, have. I would consider like we're part timers. Like we go once a month. We talk about it, for 80 hours out of the month, but then we go for 8 hours out of the month. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like the ratio is totally inverted, and and then there's people that only talk about it. You got guys like Matthew Muir. He lives in the United Kingdom. Dude's lucky if he goes once a year. You know what I mean? So, like, and T.S. Wade's another follower that we have, and he kind of gets nervous about where the Walt Disney World Company is too. And so, like, they're looking at the company from, like, the moon. What I mean? They're not on ground zero. Right. Yeah, you have a different perspective there. Yeah. Well, so I say all that to say there's different perspectives, there's different languages with regard to this passion, and they're not all compatible. Braden has a very specific language. Same with DSNY Newscast. Very passionate about the parks, but they're coming at it from different approaches. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I do want to thank you too, Summer, for saying Tim Tracker and all those great content creators, because that's really going to help the algorithm with the video.
There you go. I could keep going if you want.
But Slimer, but I want to actually pass it along to you because I think you're the one that has the notes. If you could actually run through some of the things that actually are in the pipelines for Walt Disney World that we all can look forward to. I know Braden touched upon a few of them, but there's actually, believe it or not, a lot of nooks and crannies that are in there that need to be aired out. So I'll pass it along to you, bro.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. So this is courtesy of Walt Disney World News Today. There's another algorithm boost right there. Walt Disney World News Today. Algorithms 1, 2. Orange Grove 55. All right. So all right, so we have the Disney free dining plans, which he discussed. But then annual pass, so he discussed this. Annual pass holders and cast members beginning on the 11th of this month, they're going to be able to view the good to go calendars. So that's great. And, I'm actually going to be going this month with George. So as soon as that comes up, we'll try to do a video or pop out a tweet of our experience with that. I think that'd be a good video to do. Yeah. Then virtual queue, one at a time, where guests have valid admission. That begins, I believe, on 1/9 as well. And I think what that is people are going to have the ability of jumping into a virtual queue while having a valid admission without actually having to be in the park, because there's instances where you have to be in the park to get into a virtual queue. What else? Genie Plus selections before a day of visit, so guests can spend less time planning in the park. That's a big one. Now, that one doesn't have a date yet. Tom said that he has people very close to him saying that that's going to be within the next couple of weeks. But that's huge. That's huge because right now, in order for you to pick a time slot, you have to be in the park to do so, right? So it's all very GPS based. But if I can, from the leisure of my living room, come home from work the day before I go to the park, select the time slots that I want to go ahead and ride rides, that's going to be great because it means less time on the phone. So that's an improvement. It's not ideal, but it's an improvement.
Absolutely.
What else do we have here? Pirates Tavern featuring Peg Leg Pete. To me, that's huge. Yeah. I mean, a pirate tavern, it's not more stuff for kids. All right. Yeah, but it's more stuff for adults. and that's going to get the adults into Magic Kingdom that don't have the kids.
Right.
So if like they can start, transporting some of the adults from Epcot into Magic Kingdom, some of the parents with kids at Epcot, and kind of balance out those crowds, I think that's a good thing to shoot for.
It's like that cross-pollination, right?
Yeah, start cross-pollinating Disney guests. And then they also have Test Track, which is supposedly going to close this year for reimagining.
I'm really excited about that. I'm very curious.
Yeah, I am too. I think, Test Track is, to me, it's an overrated ride. So it does need an improvement. And then they also have, what else? Boardwalk Inn and Villas. That's gonna achieve completion this year. That include the Cake Bake Shop and the Blue Ribbon Corn Dogs, which do not have dates yet.
Which is fine. I'm perfectly fine with the pizza.
There you go. Yeah, George is a pizza guy.
There you go.
He's Italiano.
You can even take it to your room. Grand Floridian Resort reimagining is going to reach its completion in 2024, and then the Polynesian DVC Tower and the DVC cabins are going to finish this year as well as the new DVC Lounge. So there's quite a bit happening at the Walt Disney World Resort for all sorts of guests. So there are things happening. No big attractions other than Tianas Bayou Adventure, which that's kind of a big deal. I mean, that you're replacing Splash Mountain. That's not a small attraction there. I mean, that's equivalent to replacing Pirates of the Caribbean or Haunted Mansion in my book.
Yeah, and I do think we're going to get. I think we're going to get a lot more news once they kind of know where this district is going to, where the dust settles. And my prediction for that whole thing is obviously we're never going to go back to Reedy Creek the way it was. I do think, though, with these court cases and what have you, things are going to shake in Disney's favor. Some things will shake in DeSantis's favor, and we're going to kind of land in a spot where it's this hybrid of what Disney wants and kind of what DeSantis wants. It's kind of this middle ground. And then once they know what they're dealing with, then they can announce these big things, because now they know what they're working with. I think that's really what's holding them up, but we'll get it.
So what's the wild card announcement they can make? So that excludes like Villains Land, guys.
Okay.
What's the wild card announcement they would make where you just go, oh shit, like that's awesome. Like what would that be for you guys?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
Like for me, Pirates Tavern featuring Peg Leg Pete kind of falls into that category.
Now Peg Leg Pete, that's okay. So that's interesting. Pete, right? The cartoon Pete from Goof Troop?
No, he's a parrot.
Oh, okay. I'm like, that's an interesting crossover, right? To have Pete, but he's a pirate. Okay, it's the okay. Yeah. I don't know. Let me think. Like, this is tough, man. Okay, you know what? I'll say. Well, it's weird because they're kind of leaning towards this Encanto thing over to Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
But if the ride system, if the house and the ride system is that of very similar to that of Mystic Manor, that would blow my mind. That would blow my mind. And I think that's a perfect way to do that ride. What about you, Italiana? What would blow your mind? Curl your toes. Get you screaming.
I was curling my toes as you said that. Get the hell out of my house.
Let me honestly sorry. I'm trying to think. Honestly, if they were to make an announcement, if they were to do some sort of lounge that incorporates either the Tower of Terror or the Haunted Mansion and infuse it with it being a Jace attraction itself, you have me. That would be phenomenal because those are two attractions that I think a lot of people have been wishing and wanting either to have like a Hollywood Tower hotel or like a Haunted Mansion themed hotel or some sort of restaurant or bar and lounge. I think if they do that, I think that would kind of catch everyone off by surprise because they're already kind of infusing that kind of notion on the cruise ships. And I think, honestly, if they incorporate it to the attractions themselves in the parks, I think that would be really phenomenal. And we also have to take that into consideration, too. Disney is not, even though we are in 2024, but this is also the year of the D23 Expo, or just the D23 Ultimate Fan Event. That if they make all the announcements right now, there's not going to be nothing for the expo. So if they're if Disney is going to do this right, then they will do it at D23, and they should. This is when they should do it.
Yep. Yeah.
The ball is in their favor. They just have to. They're at they're at half court. Time's ticking.
Well, this is he's got tomorrow's got to shoot a shot. He's got to do it this time.
Yeah.
You know, this is the third expo now. I mean, well, we had the D23 expo, and then we had the Destination D. This time he's really got to go, as George says, ball to the wall and really give us something. And I think he
know what I would love to see?
What was that?
Like, as you know, we're talking wild cards. Imagine if they replaced the monorails with monorail vehicles which looked kind of like cartoony, or maybe like if one monorail was based off of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
wow.
You know,
that's
and then
interesting.
one monorail is based off of the monorails in Zootopia, and then another one is like, I don't know, like another one was like a choo-choo train.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like themed monorails. That's fascinating.
Monorails.
That's a fascinating concept. And, you know, even just a new fleet of monorails, I think would change the game. I think fans would go nuts for that. If they make that announcement, that's big. That's big.
Yeah.
You know?
And we also have to take into consideration, too, folks, that we, on this particular episode, only talked about Walt Disney World. There is still stuff in the pipeline for Disneyland. There's still stuff in the pipeline for Disney Cruise Line. There's stuff in the pipeline with the Disney parks internationally around the world. But this is only primarily to Walt Disney World. So, but if you look at the Disney company as a whole for the experiences, you know, there's a lot that's actually going on right now. So also take that into consideration.
Big things, baby. Big things.
Big things. Big things.
Do you either one of you fellas have any final thoughts? Any questions, comments, concerns?
I have one final thought.
Brand new money, brand new hundreds, got a bunch of zeros like a bag of new Funyuns.
Of course.
Hey, George, did you want to tell our friends what we're going to be doing this month?
Absolutely. So yes, before we get out of here, later on in the month of January, I decided
we're not getting engaged, by the way. If
yes, we're not. No. Yes. This guy's already taken. But ladies, I'm available. Sorry, going off a little bit of a tangent there. Thank you. But anyway, this coming month, I am.
George will be here all day. $40 lap dances. Anyone else?
Oh gosh, that's great. But anyway, later on in the month, I'll be going out to California for a few days, seeing this guy over here and our mutual friend Mindy. We're gonna spend a few days at Disneyland, and then I thought, you know, I could always go home, but you know, what's the fun in that, you know? So I thought I'd kind of make a little detour down to Florida and go to Walt Disney World, because you know it's been a few months, and you know me, I go through Disney withdrawal. So of course this guy down here is a local in Florida, so I thought, you know what, we do the shows together, you know, we talk on the phone, you know, we DM in the chats, what have you, but we never met in person, so I thought this would be the great opportunity to meet up in the parks, go have some fun, and we're also inviting any one of the viewers that follows the show. If you're in the area, if you're at the parks, in the resort, hotel, what have you, let us know. We're no shy people. Come on over, say hi, hang out. Maybe we'll get something to eat, go ride some rides, and just do as I say. Go balls to the wall style.
There we go. There we go. Absolutely. So hit these gentlemen up if you're in the area. Hit them up. And George, I expect you to have a beer at the what was that place called again? Paradiso.
Paradiso 37.
There we go. There we go. Over there at Disney Springs. That place is great.
It was just due to some scheduling. I tried getting my boy over here to come, but of course with the scheduling and everything.
With work and stuff, it's kind of hard. But we'll make it down there again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad. Oh, go ahead. You were saying
round 2 or season 2.
Season 2. But so I'm very glad that you got to see Walt Disney World firsthand, OG, so that way you can kind of give your opinion on it and also make the decision if you want to go back again. And being that you do want to go back again, that tells me that you enjoyed yourself. So I did my job.
Disney World's a unique place. It's different than Disneyland, and that's what makes it great, because I can get, like, Disneyland has its things that are better and things that it has that's worse, and Florida has things that are better and things that are not as good or whatever. So it's fun to experience those differences,
Yeah. OJ, have you thought about what you would do differently if you went another time? Like, how would you approach Walt Disney World? Are there parks that you just completely avoid, or rides you completely avoid?
Yeah, actually, I would spend more time in Magic Kingdom. I think that was the park I spent the least amount of time this time around. Mm-hmm. So I would do a little more Magic Kingdom. I did 2 days at Epcot, 2 days at Animal Kingdom this last time. So I want to hit more Magic Kingdom up this time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I actually agree. And actually, I'm not even going to stop there, since I'm even going to be out there a few days in Disneyland. You happen to see us, you're in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We'll be sporting the two Italianos in California. Yeah. As I said, I'm a people person. I was like, I'll surf the crowds, just don't drop me, because this is valuable. So
so you said the two Italians, and then for whatever reason, what popped in my head was the Wild and Crazy guys from SNL. Like,
that's funny.
I just pictured you guys like walking and going,
yeah,
Wild and Crazy guys.
Yeah, exactly. Now, George, in terms of your face, this thing right here, that face card never gets declined, man. Never gets declined.
No, never.
It goes through every time.
This is insured. Like, this is like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
$1 million.
Yes. $1 million.
Yes.
But I want to thank you both for joining me today on this very lengthy Citrus Corner. But I'm glad we did. We had a lot to discuss, a lot to announce, and I'm glad to be back doing Citrus Corners. So moving forward, I think a lot of positive stuff is on the horizon for not just Walt Disney World, but just for Disney in general. And we have to think this, as OG had said it many times, this is now an over 100-year company. There's bound to be going to be ups and downs throughout the time span. And Disney has been through, I feel, far worse, and they got out of it. So this is a no-brainer.
This isn't my first rodeo. I've said it many times. I've been in this community for a very, very long time. And that's why I see a lot of people like doom and gloom in this stuff. And I'm like, come on, guys. We're going to be okay. It's going to be fine. Okay. Now, look, that doesn't mean that you put your head in the sand and there's no problems. No one's saying that. But this whole thing about like Disney's done, it's like, come on. It's like nonsense, man.
It's like
now watch, because I said that, tomorrow it will be done.
The stock market will crash.
Fatality.
Yeah, fatality. Finish them. But yeah, thank you, George, for having us today, man. It was a really good show. I really had a good time talking with you and Slimer. It was great.
Absolutely. And Slimer, down below, tell everyone where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Slime Square 84 for all your supernatural elimination needs. I want to say thanks for this chat. That was cool. Post in the comments below what your Disney language is. Are you a Disney philosophizer? Do you go to the parks? Do you mainly watch the movies? Do you mainly buy the merchandise? How do you get your Disney fill? Let us know, because I'd like to know. There's a couple of you guys that watch our channel. I'd really like to know. I mean, how do you guys that don't live in the United States?
Yeah.
around a Disney park? How do you guys get your Disney kicks? Let us know. I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. And this guy right over here, that none of this would ever be. This is like the OG of the OG right over here,
Yeah.
Mr. Orange Grove 55.
We're doing it death row. I still can't get over all the black shirts. It's great, dude.
I know.
It's so good. We're
Dude,
like
you wanna
Dr. Dre and Snoop, you know.
All right. So next show, I'll bring out my Easy E socks.
Yes, please. That would be fantastic.
Oh,
Fantastic.
God, that'd be great. That'd be
I told
great.
you guys, there's a whole other side of slime where y'all don't know.
You know, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
That's great.
Yeah, but thank you.
OG, where could they find you on social media?
You can find me on X or Twitter, whatever we're calling it today, and or at Orange Grove 55. You can find me on Instagram, Orange Grove 55, and you can find me right here on YouTube, Orange Grove 55.
Nice.
And that's 50 with a 50. 50.
55.
55.
And of course, all of you know me as George the Italiano, host of Citrus Corner. You could find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And as I mentioned before, you can find me on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with this show right here, Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And I just want to thank you all for joining us. Comment down below with your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, all that good jazz. And as I always say, stay safe, stay healthy, stay Disney. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.